Greetings to all my tech heads out there in the KevTechify nation, and if you're new here, welcome. In this episode, we're going to look at configuring a DHCP version 4 client. We'll be discussing using a Cisco router as a DHCP version 4 client. We'll go through a configuration example, and then finally we'll talk about your home router as a DHCP version 4 client. This episode is part of my series on switching, routing, and wireless essentials. I'm Kevin here at KevTechify. Let's get this adventure started. There may be situations where you're going to have to set up your router to actually be a client, to actually go out and get that IP address from a DHCP server. Couple scenarios for that. One might be where you have a SOHO office, small office, home office, an executive working from home, or in today's world, maybe even some employees that choose to work from home for whatever reason, the telecommuting people. And you have to set those up to get an IP address from the company through a VPN or something like that. And you configure that router that way. Some ISPs, they say you have to have a client so that you can get one of their IP addresses to be onto their network. Now, it's very similar on how you do it for a client. You go in there and you say, okay, set it to obtain an IP address from a DHCP server. Here, the command would be IP address DHCP. Here's the example we have. We have our SOHO router right here. We're going to set this gig 001 interface to be the DHCP client, right? We connect up to our internet, cable modem, DSL modem, however your ISP provides you access. Your ISP will set up their own DHCP server. This is why you have to set your client, which is a SOHO router, or maybe it's a normal router in today's world. Some of these ISPs, they provide big bandwidth to medium to even sometimes large companies through a DHCP server on their network to give you that IP address so you can access that ISP. So they'll set up their own DHCP server. You'll have to pull your IP address to do that. How we go through when we do that is whatever interface we have that's going to connect to our modem, our cable modem or DSL modem, whatever type of interface it is, you go into that. Now, normally we type IP address and we put the actual IP address. We put 192.168.10.0 or .1, and then the subnet mask after that. Instead of actually manually putting that IP address in there, you say IP address DHCP, and that turns it into a DHCP client. And of course, anytime you do anything with an interface, always make sure it's active by doing a no shutdown command. And that's all you have to do. And as you can see here, we get a system update, address assigned. So on this interface, assign DHCP address of this. This is the address we got from our ISP. Here's our mask. That's after the DORA process is completed. What we can do is we can do a show IP interface. We can see the information about it. We can see that the interface is up and up. That's always good. We have our address here of 209.165.201.12/27. This is the IP address we got from the Internet's ISP DHCP server. And then it tells us that the address was determined by DHCP. We have it set to go out and do that DORA process and obtain that address from a DHCP server. Most of us have probably seen this in some way, shape, or form. At home, we're going to have some sort of router. That $50 Linksys Belkin D-Link router that you got at a big box store, you ordered online, you got it in, and you're setting it up. Somewhere, you're going to have your internet set up, your WAN connection. Another thing they typically call this your WAN connection. And then somewhere, it'll say, are you going to do automatic configuration? If you click on this drop down, odds are there's a couple other choices. One of them will be manual or static, where you go in and you type your address. But when you set it to this, you're going to pull an IP address from your ISP. And that's what we're looking for here to set a client up for that. It was my pleasure to provide you with this wonderful episode on configuring a DHCP version 4 client. If you like this episode and you got value out of it, and of course, depending upon what platform you're using, please click that like button, give a 5-star rating, leave a comment. This all helps me bring you more great content. Please take a minute to subscribe to my channel. All my socials and contact information are on my website, KevTechify.com. You can get all these episodes in video and podcast form. In the upper right is my playlist for my series on switching, routing, and wireless essentials. In the bottom right is one of my favorite videos that I linked just for you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of my series on switching, routing, and wireless essentials. Once again, I'm Kevin. This is KevTechify. I'll see you next time for another great adventure.